Hello everyone. Welcome to the first session of Meet the Mentor with Madhubun. Today we have with us a very special guest. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. G Balasubramanian.
Hello everybody. Good evening, Diya.
Hi sir, such a pleasure to have you here. So many of you will be familiar with Dr. Balasubramanian today. Let me introduce myself. My name is Diyasree and I'm an editor at Madhubun. Bala sir needs no introduction to some of our viewers today. But for those of you who are watching this segment for the first time, Dr. Balasubramanian was the former Director Academics at CBSE and is currently the Chairperson for the International Council of School Leaders. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you, Diya.
So we were discussing many things before we started the shoot. And one of the things that you mentioned was that today there is a lot of burden on students from the point of view of exams, from the point of view of academics. So what are the things that you feel teachers, parents, students can do to lessen that burden?
Well, today that's a buzzword that there is burden on the children. When you look at the kind of the burden that you have on children, it can be classified into 4 categories. 1, the bag load. 2, the curriculum load. 3, the transaction load. And 4th, the psychological load. When it comes to the bag load, actually a number of children carry books and notebooks which are actually not necessary for transaction in the school. And probably that has created a kind of annoyance, and consequently there are certain directions about the load of the school bag. But I think more than the weight of a school bag, the curriculum load, the transaction load and psychological load needs to be addressed. In the sense that curriculum has to be enabling, empowering, facilitating joyful reading and result in a happy environment both at home as well as at the school. The transaction load actually refers to the schools and the teachers trying to overdo certain things which are not age appropriate, which are more to develop a kind of a brand or a kind of a halo about the quality of education in the school. All that is secondary when we talk about the psychological load to the children. I think the psychological load is really created by both the parents as well as the community, because parents would like their children to achieve more than what they are capable of, even without knowing what their interests and aptitudes are. Oftentimes parents try to transfer their own dreams which they could not achieve to the children, and then the schools and the teachers also have some dreams, and therefore they try to use children to realize those dreams, and the community and the country has gotten certain dreams from the younger generation, and therefore there is a pressure. Consequently, the children tend to dream for everybody, and in that process, unfortunately, they are not able to dream their own existence. And I think that's an issue that we need to address as far as the stress factor for the children is concerned.
That's a very interesting point, sir. So when you say that you talked about the transactional load, right? So how do you feel that load can be reduced, whether in the classroom, whether through the content that they use?
Well, basically, the emerging concerns in pedagogy, the researchers in neurocognitive sciences and also in brain sciences very clearly say that there is nothing called teaching. It's all about learning. So the role of a school and the role of a teacher is to create an appropriate, joyful environment for learning. And it's also said that learning cannot be caused. Learning can only be facilitated. Therefore, the content, the pedagogy, the resources like textbooks, all these things should addressed to creating this kind of appropriate environment for children to learn rather than to absorb and repeat what is being done. In that process, the creative faculties of children are marginalized. And I think right from the KG class, we need to infuse a sense of self-confidence, a sense of achievement in the children. I think that's the role of a textbook and the role of teachers in the class.
So, thank you for mentioning that. When you mentioned self-confidence, I remember earlier this year when we were working on a series called I Can, which is for the KG series, the KG students, and you've seen that series. That was one of the key areas that we looked at, developing the self-confidence of the learner, making him ready to go to school. Now, when we look at the new curriculum that has come out from the CISE, the curricular work that is being done by the NCERT, do you feel that the focus is on, where do you feel the focus is for the child, for the learner?
Now, I'm happy to hear the nomenclature of your book as I Can. That's a very interesting term. That's a very positive assertion that would get into the thought patterns of the children right from the young age, that I can.
I'm going to interrupt here also to say that when we came up with the name I Can, that's actually an acronym. I stands for imagination, C stands for creativity, A for awareness, and N for nurturing.
Fantastic. I think you started this as an acronym, but I must tell you one thing, that one of the early policies on educational theories by Vygotsky talks about what is called zone of proximal development. And what he argues there is that every child, every learner has got two domains, I can and I can't. So I can is a domain where the confidence profile of the child is built in, and I think that's a base on which the cognitive development, the emotional development, and the psychomotor development takes place. And therefore all the resources, be it textbook or pedagogical inputs, all of them should facilitate nurturing and developing this I can profile of every learner. But then, what's the role of a school? What's the role of a book? Is it just to identify and nurture? But how do we nurture it? I think nurturing is done by enabling the child to move from I can zone to I can't zone. I can't zone.
From I
can to I can't zone. The question is, there are a number of things in I can't zone which the child feels inadequate. Now, expansion of this I can zone and allowing this I can zone to access as many issues which the child thought which cannot do.
Right.
I think so. This is what we call the zone of proximal development, developing the I can zone slowly and steadily to acquire competencies which earlier the child thought I can't.
That's very interesting, because when you hear going from I can to I can't, you think that are we diminishing the confidence of the child? But actually what you're doing is that you're enabling the child to take more things into his domain, right? And to convert them. That's very interesting.
I must also say at this stage that when I say that I can to I can't, it doesn't mean that you are moving from a positive to negative direction.
Exactly.
We use a positive energy to access a number of things which we thought we couldn't do it, and thereby it increases a sense of achievement and the ability of a child to excel his previous performance.
Exactly. So this is also very much part of the constructivist approach.
This is exactly the foundation of constructivism. Vygotsky is called the father of the constructivist approach, and this is zone of proximal development was one of the earliest concepts which facilitated this.
Right. So for our viewers, would you explain very briefly what the constructivist approach is and how the movement of learning happens?
See, constructivist approach is basically a brain facilitative approach, the ability of a child to construct his own learning. And how does a child construct his learning? One is based on his previous experiences. Two, by the sensory inputs that the child gets there. 3, by relating the concepts he learns either through textual resources and pedagogical inputs to the immediate environment in which the child lives, right, and thereby establishing a rapport between the inner self and the outer self, right. I think constructivism doesn't really mean construction in terms of materials. We talk about constructivist thought processes, and I think that's the basis for creativity and innovation.
Right. So there was something very interesting you mentioned over there about the importance of the child encompassing his environment through his learning. Right. Now, when we're looking at very small children, today there is a tendency, in fact, the books that are used at the preschool level, you have separate books for languages, separate books for EVS, a book for mathematics. But when we look at children who are 2.5, 3.5 years old, 4.5 years old, they don't understand the concept of subject.
Yeah, actually, subjects are something which are man-made.
Right.
They are really made because of the convenience for dissipation of knowledge.
But and for evaluation.
Evaluation is an administrative convenience rather than academic convenience.
Right. So, do you think that there is more value to a thematic approach to learning?
Yes, of course. The thematic approach facilitates integrated learning, interactive learning. And I think today we are also talking about multisensory learning.
Yes.
And I think, learning doesn't really mean a concept is restricted to physics, chemistry, biology, not related to nature only. Therefore, I think your thematic approaches will facilitate holistic thinking and integrated thinking. And that's exactly what we need for our schools and the country today.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really very interesting. I'd like to share with you our series I Can and show you some of the features of it. So we'll do that offline. Thank you to all our viewers who've been with us today. It's been wonderful. And we now conclude our first session of Madhubun's Meet the Mentor. Thanks for watching.